Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm Ray Samich, and it is my first opportunity today to introduce all of you to my dear friend and my longtime radio colleague and co-host, actually my spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I've had some technological issues this morning. We won't bore our listeners and viewers with that, but my light didn't work. My computer didn't work. I'm using a borrowed computer right now, but I didn't want to miss the show. So we're certainly on with you. But we could do a show sometime very soon, maybe, on when technology fails around us. Some things that we count on don't happen, and how that frustrates us. And yet, when we think back, I happen to be out at a home right now that was built in 1906. So I'm surrounded in an area in a probably what was a mansion in Texas. When it was built, it was surrounded by horses and cows and fields, and this had to be a state-of-the-art facility. It just puts it all in perspective that I can't get my fabulous computer with a terabyte of disk drive in it to operate in a 1906 home. But we'll have to talk about the craziness of those situations. Anyway, today, Ratanjit, what I want to talk to you about is regrets. I have my share, but I also know a number of people that their lives have been almost ruined, destroyed by the regrets that they have about things that they did or things that they didn't do, sometimes as silly as something they said in a moment of anger, in a moment of being out of control because something happened that upset them and they made some very harsh words towards somebody else. And because of that, the relationships failed and their lives were changed forever. And now they have to live with the regret of what they said or what they did. How do you overcome that, Ratanjit? How do you, when you know that you're the culprit, you're the reason why it went bad, you're the reason why your life changed, how do you cope with that for the rest of your life?
Fundamentally, there are right regrets and wrong regrets. Most have wrong regrets because our reality is skewed. And basically, all our regrets are based on our wants and needs and driven by our five senses and driven by our fear, greed, and ego. And so until we realize who we truly are, the biggest regret we should all have, we don't have. The biggest regret we should all have is I have spent all my life, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, without knowing who I am and operating in the falsehood of my entire thinking and doing. That should be the real regret. Ray?
I mean, you've opened up our show here with a very, very deep thought, completely changed the tone of where I was at, because you're right. I mean, we could switch to that topic as being the ultimate regret. The ultimate regret not to realize what our purpose is and who we really are and what we're supposed to be doing when we're here. And I can relate to the idea that maybe, I'm 85 or 95 years old and I'm suddenly realizing that my entire life is over and I've had 9 decades of life, and yet I haven't fulfilled my purpose. I mean, certainly that is the ultimate regret of a lifetime. So, we're kind of talking about that indirectly all the time on this program, and it's always woven in to the fabric of the show. But that aside, and I know that's a big issue to put aside, I don't mean to disregard it too lightly, but I am referring to the day-to-day regrets that most of us do have, that maybe, I don't know, maybe if we can overcome these little regrets in the right way, maybe if you can help us to understand how to overcome these, it'll lead us closer to understanding the ultimate regret that you just referred to. Maybe we can put it in perspective, because I think that's part of the issue. I think we we get out of balance in our lives in terms of what's a priority and what isn't. And sometimes our brain takes control and we say that this is so important. I can't live without this person, for example. If I don't have him or her, I don't want to survive. Or if I've made such a mistake, my life is over. I can't ever get over that in my mind, that I had this opportunity and I didn't grasp it, or I made a mistake. My dream job that I always wanted to have, that I went to school for all these years, and I finally got that job interview and I didn't do well at the interview and I didn't get the job. Those types of regrets we place at such a high priority. And that's, I think, part of the reason why we can't get past them, because they just hurt so deeply. So if we could get back to kind of that topic, what do you think? Is there a way for us to reprioritize within our human journey, within our physical journey, what we should regret and what we shouldn't? When you said there's good regrets and bad ones, right ones and wrong ones, which ones are the right ones?
Right ones are the one we are talking about. But once you realize that I spent all my life
Okay.
in thinking of me as the human body and fulfilling the need and directed by the human body, fear, greed, and insecurity and ego. And all my regrets are based on what I didn't get. If I had made this decision, I would be a millionaire. If I had married this girl, I would be so happy. And if I had not spoken loudly, I would still have friends and so on. Those regrets are as a consequence. If we realize we can, so many times we don't remember what we did wrong. Once we realize that every moment we lived was wrong, in the absence of knowing who we are, absence of being grateful for every breath we take, absence of being connected to who we are, the supreme power within us, within everyone. And automatically our entire demeanor or thinking or whole modus operandi changes completely once our mind, which is our computer, is directed by the universal power rather than our human body, which is constantly fearing death, constantly fearing hurting our ego, constantly lives in fear, greed, and ego. And and basically all our decisions of life are based on these things which are directed by our human body. Until we get directed by the power, supreme power, one power, which is present in each one of us, every moment should be regretted, right?
So you maybe this question can't really be answered without going to that right regret.
Yes.
I'm trying to separate them today, and I'm not being effective at communicating that, because we realize that right regret is big. It is the biggest. It is the ultimate regret to not realize that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that as a physical being, we're being driven by our ego and fear and greed. I gather that. I totally grasp that reality. Do you think that until we understand that, we will always have other regrets? I mean, is that what it comes down to? Is that there really is kind of no reason to talk about overcoming regrets of being a human, because we'll always have those, and we won't be able to overcome those until we understand and overcome the ultimate regret?
So I'm
Is that
talking about the reality, whereas you want me to go back into pseudo reality. So all our pseudo realities, made believe realities, that I am a human body, I'm white, I'm black, I'm male, I'm female, I'm young, I'm old, I'm Asian, I'm Americans, all those related to this human body. And I'm not the human body. I live in the human body. You are now in Texas. You rented this house, beautiful house, but that's not you. You live in that house. Similarly, we live in this human body. And this divine force which lives in this human body, not realizing, not until we don't let our real boss control our life. Instead of that, our servant control the life. Wouldn't that be regretful?
sure?
So it's although normally we are parked in the human body mode, and our thinking and doing is all controlled and dedicated with the human body mode, and it's natural for you to, hey, say, Ratanjit, wait a minute, you are talking about this thing, let's talk about the reality. And what we think reality is the pseudo reality. It's not reality. And until we admit that and talk about the real reality, there's thousands and hundreds of books which are written how to handle this regret. They will say, past is past, remain in the present, think about this future, and improve this, have the positive ideas, and this. All those things automatically happen once you are operating in the oneness mode. You don't have to do a thing. The moment you know that the supreme power enlivens you and also enlivens somebody else who you are looking at, you automatically have the ultimate respect. Would you ever say bad things to the ultimate divine force, your God? So automatically civilization, honesty, everything happens. So in absence of that, you can try. You can read books and you can attend seminar, or you can constantly you're advised by your parents, your mentors, your teachers to behave in a certain way, and you do behave when somebody is watching, somebody you want to impress, which is again ego-driven. But you do nasty things when nobody is watching. So ultimately, that advice is useless to give until you make everyone realize who they are and operate in the mode they should be operating in. All your values, all your demeanor, honesty, kindness, integrity automatically falls into place as a consequence. There are no regret left after that. So regrets automatically, completely are wiped off once you are operating in the oneness mode, right?
Ratanjit, we've been doing this show for 30 years. And almost every topic that we have discussed, we've presented it at both levels, if you will. There's always been an underwriting understanding of the real us and of the need to approach everything in life as the real us. But we always, to me, always seem to also address these issues with what we call applied spirituality, meaning use the spiritual approach to real world problems that exist because we are humans living in a human body and having that human experience. Today, so far in the show, and maybe it's me, maybe it's just different for me today, but I'm hearing you say that this particular topic, and maybe this is true for other ones too, but this particular topic is almost impossible to approach properly or fully if you just stay in the human mode. We have to have that understanding of the spiritual, our spiritual existence, and that the real us is going to needs to elevate ourselves to the understanding that the only way that you don't have regrets is if you live your life in oneness. Is that because regrets are caused in the first place because we don't live in that state? I mean, have we found a topic here today that wouldn't even exist if we lived life the way we were intended? And that's why the only answer to it is to get back to that spiritual existence?
See, all our egos, all our regrets are ego based. I wish I would have done that. I would feel better. Better means my ego is more satisfied. I will have a higher uh, thinking of me. I think better if I did this.
Right.
So there are the regrets itself, the concept of regrets itself is ego based.
Huh. Okay.
So all our regrets exist once we live in the body mode. Once we live in oneness mode, the only dominating feeling exists is gratefulness. There's no ego. There's nothing mine. Everything is gifted to me. This human body is a gift. And I can talk and feel and think is a gift. So I am part totally in the gratefulness mode, and there is absolutely no room for regrets because there is no ego.
You have answered it with those last few words. You've answered the question when you said regrets are formed in ego. That's a different, you talk about all the books that have been written on this topic, all of the mentors that have shared stories on how to overcome regrets in our life. It's not that rare a topic. It's rare for us to talk about it, but in the big world, it's been discussed many times over. I don't know if it has been answered before that says the reason we have regrets is because we're parked in ego. And that reality is pretty stunning unto itself, because while regrets are because we know we did something wrong, I think that's the main reason for the regret, is that I made a mistake, or I didn't do something I should have, or did something I shouldn't have in one way, shape, or form. I think we take responsibility for that. We say we did it, but I don't think we think that comes out of ego. I didn't until this conversation. I didn't think that was ego driven. I think it was fault driven, a mistake I made, but I didn't think it was all stemming from ego. So when we come back from the break, I'd like to start with that. I'd like to start with why you are convinced that that is purely an ego-based response, and maybe that will help me understand why we can't even have regrets if or we would never have regrets if we were parked in the mode of oneness. It's an interesting show, at least for me today. Hope it is for you too. We're on Stress Free Living. We'll be back in just a moment. Please stay with us. All right, everybody. Brian, I know you've already been chatting with us. If you guys have a comment, please share.
I do. I think it's disappointment of outcome is what your question was, Ray, to Ratanjit. I get the point of ego driving us, and we're looking for an outcome, and when it doesn't happen, it's a disappointment. It doesn't happen the way we think it should happen, but that not having it happen the way we think it should happen is our ego. I agree with that. But that disappointment, and we dwell on it. How do we change that? We didn't want it to come out that way. We didn't want that reaction, and it occupies us. And then, what do? How do you fix that situation? When you talked about, words that come out of someone's mouth and affect a relationship, what do? You apologize. That's what you do. You go and admit it. Be honest about it. And if that doesn't fix it, then there's something on the other side that needs to realize, I think. But most of the things that we're talking about with folks is driven from their ego. They all have a view of themselves, and they think things should be the way they think it should be. When we let that go, we tend to get along better. That's just an experience of my life.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm having difficulty because I'm not able to monitor the station here. So I'm standing by with Jacob to see if we're just about back. Jacob, got 30 seconds, or are we back? Okay, 10 seconds. So we're coming back. Brian, thanks for the comments. We're going to be back here in just a second.
Yeah.
We're back on Stress Free Living. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ray Samich and Ratanjit and Ray talking about overcoming regrets. And it's been an interesting program for me so far to understand what the purpose, why we have these regrets in the first place, and how we can overcome them. Ratanjit, one of our guests that's with us on Zoom, I think is talking about us going to the move to say, what do we do when we have those, whether they have been caused by ego, which seems to be the prevalent idea here, or whatever it is, what do we do? What action do we take? So I want to get into that in just a couple minutes. How do we still act properly to try to minimize and overcome that problem going forward in the future? But I still want to understand a little bit more about the relationship for the ego, because a regret that I made, a regret that I have, let's take a fictitious example, but let's say that I ruined a relationship because of harsh words. Let's say that I was just not thinking, and I can't blame it on being, tired or drinking too much or whatever. I don't have any kind of an excuse. I was in a right state of mind. I had my faculties about me, but I still said something terrible that I shouldn't have said. And as a result, somebody who is special to me was very much offended. And basically, that changed the relationship forever. Okay. That to me, I don't understand where the ego is in that, because I really did say that. I really did in this hypothetical situation. I did really say those terrible words. I really did hurt that person terribly. They think far less of me now, and it's true. It's not just in my ego. It really is real that I hurt them and they feel terrible, and they now can't overcome what I did or what I said to make that relationship better again. Where's the ego in that? That's a reality. It isn't my perception because I only care about me. I really did hurt them. I really did say the wrong things. Help me understand where the ego is in that picture.
Unless somebody realizes the concept of oneness fully comprehend that, and fully understand that, they will never be able to dissect and answer the question which you are asking. Because it is all the problems when I say something wrong, when I do something incorrect, I am not part in oneness. So basically, whenever I said that, and when I begin to realize, oh my goodness, I slipped again from oneness to the body mode, and this is what happened. So it's not what I said was wrong, I was in the wrong mode. So
Okay.
once you realize, and that realization will not happen to us until we fully comprehend. We can say these things and it will make some sense to some people, and some, oh, come on, Ratanjit, this is, somebody said this to me, how can he not feel guilty? So because they are so much engrossed, because we are run by not by our knowledge, by our habits. And habitually we are parked in the human body mode. We have to change those habits of thinking and doing and acting in the body mode, and slowly practice to think and do and act in the divine oneness mode. So this is going to take some practice, and you are going to fluctuate from both, and you will begin to notice the difficulties and the mistakes and erroneous thinking you will have once you are in the human body mode. Not that there is something wrong with you. It's basically your computer, your brain, your thinking, your doing is guided and controlled by the wrong entity. And that entity is designed to be afraid, is designed to be insecure, is designed to have ego. There's nothing wrong with you to have that. That is the human body's properties. If you want water to be not wet, it's impossible. Water has the natural quality to be wet. So you blame the water all you want, but you in the process of keeping everything dry, you have to keep the water away. So similarly, in order to do everything right, you have to have your computer, your brain is run by the universal power, which has nothing but giving and serving and loving in it. So consequently, whatever you do is going to come out right. So it's not a question of why we have ego in it. The moment we operate in the human body, it is basically run by these insecurities, ego, and greed. So it's the quality of, it's designed. Human body is designed to protect itself. It has to be afraid of constantly thinking whether it's going to hurt me or no. It is designed to think that if it doesn't feed itself, it is going to be it cannot survive. So hunger is automatically given to it. Hunger eventually gets converted into greed. You want more. You want for tomorrow, for day after tomorrow, food, for thing. So it can be hurt by extra heat and cold. It has to have home. So more comfort in the home is natural, but it doesn't stop. It in order to have comfort, then it compares your home with others, and ego comes into place. So we put things in the house and make it a warehouse, and hardly any room to walk because we collect possessions. Right?
Ratanjit, this has really been interesting today. I love what it's so simple. It's such a simple statement that water is wet. I mean, you can't get a more simple statement than that. But there's so much divine wisdom in that word, in that expression, that it's designed to be wet. It is by its nature wet. Okay. And then to take that analogy and to say, in our human form, we do have greed and we do have ego and we do have fear, and those are as much a foundation of our human existence as wetness is to water. That analogy has never hit me before as much as it has struck me at this moment. It isn't the water's fault that it's wet. It isn't the water's fault that if you pour that on a beautiful painting, a 1,000-year-old painting, that it will destroy that painting. It's not the water's fault. By nature, it's wet. And the same analogy says that it is almost not even our fault that we say something stupid based on our fear and our envy and greed, because that's just when we're in that mode, we're going to do those things, right?
Absolutely.
So we can try to be better people. We can try not to do the wrong things. We can try not to hurt people with our words that cause regrets. But much like water can't help being wet, if we're in a human mode, we're undoubtedly going to do some things based on fear, ego, and greed that are going to hurt other people. And you can't take the wetness out of water, and you can't take the fear and greed out of us if we're living in the human mode, if we're operating in the human mode. That's never hit me as strong as it's hit me at this moment in terms of that defining that impossibility for water not to be wet. So I think there's another aspect of this that I think you've just taught me for the first time, is that we know that doing bad things is not nice, is not good. It's not something we're proud of. It's a negative overtone to it. But it isn't necessarily wrong when it's being done in that human mode. It's inevitable that it's being done in the human mode. So when I have a regret over something I said, I have to understand that if I was in the human mode, that's what I'm going to do. And instead of me regretting that I said it, I need to regret that I wasn't in a spiritual mode that would have prevented me from saying it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like I can understand, you know, you're an idiot, but you're not an idiot because you said it. You're an idiot because you weren't parked in the spiritual mode that would have prevented you from saying it.
Now, there is another aspect of this. In a normal human being who's struggling through life and has a job and trying to make a good living, he or she understands that in order for him or her to operate optimally, they have to be nice to people. But internally, they have some opinion about them. Sooner or later, that opinion will get out of. Somebody they think they're really stupid, but normally they'll praise them.
Right.
But sooner or later, that'll come out. And then there is another opposite side of it. Once you are out of this normalcy of being an ordinary person, supposing you have acquired power, now nobody can punish you. You have become a king, or you have become Hitler. And then you can kill and do anything, and you can take pride in it. You satisfy your ego differently. So it's all ego game. When you are poor, you are trying to please others because it's ego. When you have power, you don't worry about others, what they think, and you torture people, and that's also ego. So you remain in the ego mode. And unless you realize who you truly are, what gives you life, your human body would be dead without that livening force. So this livening force makes this human body works. Your computer was dead, right? So
Yes.
you realize that it was not connected, or your light was not on, and you realize it was the light is not there because absence of the electricity power. So ultimately, it is the power which enlivens us is the real us. And once we realize that, we contemplate on it, we think about it, and we understand it, we make this as part of us. And then during the day, you make a simple chart. And at the end of the day, you write down all the tasks you did, all the decisions you made. And then in front of each of those decisions, you write down whether you made in the oneness mode or the human body mode. And then you, at the end of final column, you write down the results. And you will sooner or later begin to realize that those decisions which were made when you were in the human body mode, they fluctuate some good, some bad, but they are not consistent. And the decisions you made in the oneness mode are consistently higher than what you expected. So that ultimately motivates you to remain in the, before you open your mouth, you change your thinking to the oneness mode, and suddenly what comes out of you is in the right form. Right? You want to take a break?
I do, but I wanted to take one more thought. Because during the last break, one of our wonderful guests talked about what do you do after you make the mistake. And again, this is operating in that human mode. And so they suggested, we should make an apology and we should, try to move on with our relationship and our life to overcome those regrets. But it's striking me now that if we're not parked in the right mode, even the apology
Is ego.
is ego. Right.
Yes.
Because it makes me feel better that I apologized. I was big enough of a person to admit that I was wrong. So here's my apology, okay? And if it's not good enough for you, that's then it's on you, because I did my part. Now I apologize, and I admit that I made a mistake. So I'm still it's still ego driven, which is crazy. I never thought of it that way before. I never thought of this whole regret apology scenario as all coming from a point of our human egotistical state that is as much a part of us as wetness is to water. It's very it's stunningly, shockingly real. We're going to come back and finish up this topic here and see how we can advance ourselves to never having regrets. Again, wouldn't that be an amazing way to live if we had no regrets because we were parked the way we were designed to be? We'll be back in just a moment. All right. We've got a few seconds. Anybody want to join in?
I just want to make a quick comment about the apology. I think most people misunderstand the apology as saying I'm sorry, but apology has to have three elements. One is the words, which is you're saying you're sorry. The second is a spiritual element of true regret, truly feeling sorry and communicating that to the person you have offended, communicating that spiritual, emotional strength with which you make that statement. And third, most importantly, you must make amends. So apology saying I'm sorry is meaningless unless it is backed by these two things. And the part of the apology that makes it ultimately meaningful is that we don't do that again. So words, emotional strength, making physical amends, and showing in your life that you don't make that. But I think if I have a few more seconds, I talk to a larger point. Bhai Saab goes straight to Mount Everest, but I think of it as a continuum of physical, mental, and spiritual. And physical, I feel that, let's say that some person has a regret that is literally emotionally debilitating, that they can't even function. For that acute phase, if they take a pill, an antidepressant or something like that.
We're coming back, Sudarshan. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. We are back on Stress Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Interesting conversation that we've had about overcoming our regrets, and really have definitely swayed away from what I thought we were going to talk about, which is what most books and lectures have been done about maybe the psychological aspect of regrets and what we need to do. And in no way are we saying in this program that we shouldn't be sorry for mistakes we made and that we shouldn't make an attempt, a very sincere attempt to apologize for anybody that we have offended and harmed. Um, and as one of our wonderful guests, Terrace, pointed out, there's different aspects of that, a pure intent not to do it again, a purity of heart to say that we know we made a mistake and we hurt you and we're sorry for that, and an intense effort never to repeat that offense against them or anybody else. So we're acknowledging all of those things, but at the same time, Ratanjit, you have taken this to such a higher level to say that our lives will always be filled with regret because we operate in that egoic mode that is always going to be thinking of somebody else differently than the oneness of being one with us. And when we're separated from everybody else, we're always going to have the fear and the greed and the ego come into play that's going to cause us, just like water is wet, to say and do things that will come out wrong and may hurt and will hurt relationships. And then the very first thing you said at the top of the show was the main regret that we would have is perhaps going through our entire life without realizing that we are spiritual beings and this is only a human experience that we are encountering. You know, just to go there for a moment, we don't know what the spiritual life will be like after we pass through this one. I don't think there's many people that have come back that have, maybe nobody has ever come back to tell us what that is like. I don't know. But we know that in this human body, we have the ability to change people's lives. We know that in this period of time that we're on Earth, we can do amazing things with this spacesuit that was given to us and the brain that was implanted within us. So we can do inventions, we can touch people, we can lead people, we can love people in a way that will change lives while we're here, potentially change generations of lives to follow. And if we don't take that opportunity, if we don't accomplish that while we have this human experience, isn't that the ultimate regret? Isn't that to know that we had a chance to do something that we didn't do?
You know,
What do you think? What do you think?
one of our guests said that there are people who have made some mistakes and they are so much engrossed in the regret that they can't lead a normal life. They are so depressed and they are so, and how do you treat them? How do you cure them? And of course, all of us have in the human body mode some regrets. So now there are clinics and which are treating the human body mode. But there are hardly any clinics which are making them realize what they should be and slowly helping them to move into from the human body mode into oneness mode. So fundamentally, there should be some clinics which is going to allow people to understand and work slowly in from the human body mode into the oneness mode, which will ultimately make them free of their guilt and their revenges and their everything, and they will be slowly gets converted into the euphoria of gratefulness and happiness, internal happiness and joy. And that is what need to be done. And yes, surely somebody who is suffering from this, to lecture that person, you are there because of your ego, you are there because you are not operating in oneness, is not the solution, because that person does not comprehend. They are living with the habit of operating and thinking in the human body mode. Suddenly they cannot, no matter how much you can tell, they will not be able to move into the oneness mode. So there should be some help. So our spiritual institutions or religions are supposed to do that. But they basically put you back into the body mode. They don't put us into the spiritual mode. They put us in the body mode. My goodness, you are guilt, you are this, and you should pray, you should give us more money and this and that. So basically, and they divide, and you are this and you are better. You are suddenly your salvation will not come until you become this, and all that nonsense, which is given to us in the form of religion, has to stop. And we have to ultimately find institutions which you don't call them religious. We call them basically regeneration of your spiritual being, regeneration of your peace and happiness. And once you join those institutions, you will slowly realize and slowly gets converted into thinking and operating in the oneness mode, and your life will fall into place. And short of that, we can talk all we want, and this basically we will have debates, but we are operating this but, and all the but will come in, and we will not be operating. The solution is, ultimate solution is to operate in the oneness mode. And how we get from here to there is there are so many ways to do that, and we have to help people to do that. Ray?
Ratanjit, I feel I have to run a disclaimer here about the religion. All religions are run by humans. All of those churches, synagogues, mosques, all of those are run by humans. And so if they are operating in the human mode, then just like water is wet, the greed and the ego are going to come through even in religions. And so, if we choose to use the religious path, we just have to realize, hopefully we can use that path to find our spirituality, but those are going to be defective because in many cases, as you alluded to, nonsense. There's a lot of nonsensical things that are a part of those because those are being run by humans too. And I don't know if I made it worse with my disclaimer, but I'm trying to make us understand.
Those are the facts.
Those are the facts, right? Those are the facts. We need to find our own clear path, and hopefully there's some insights we can gain from those that will help us on there, but they're run by humans. So that's enough to be said on that. Ratanjit, this has been so especially enlightening today. It has been so meaningful. Maybe it's because I'm in a 118-year-old home, far away from my own home. Maybe it's because I've had technological issues this morning. Couldn't get my computer to work. Couldn't get my light to work. I didn't know if we were going to have a show and be able to pull it off. But there's been such wisdom today that has really impacted me. So I want to especially thank you for reminding me that water is wet. And as simplistic as that sounds, it really answered a lot of questions for me today in terms of why we do what we do and why we are what we are, and the need for the reality of who we really are. Brother, thank you for sharing your love and wisdom with us today. And for all of our guests on our program and wherever you may be watching or listening, live or on YouTube, check out our Stress Free Living Radio channel on YouTube. You'll find just well over 100 shows now that you can catch on all different types of applied spirituality for your own life. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, our friends, we are clear. I welcome you to stay together. I'm in a really unusual state here, borrowed computer, lots of things I have to do. So Ratanjit, I'm going to make you the host, and you can continue with your guests as much as you would like to, but I'm going to graciously, with any graciousness I have left, bow out.
I don't think my guests are talking to me because I said so many wrong things.
Well, I don't think so. I think they love you no matter what. But it was an interesting show, that's for sure. All right, you are now in charge, Ratanjit. I've given you all the power.
Okay.
All
I
right.
just want to clarify add on to the two things you said, Bhai Sahib. One was that in the short run, people get some help, medical help. It eases their pain, and then everybody goes right back to the body mode, so that the problem is fundamentally unresolved. But the second point I think you're making that I wish Ray heard that is that there is something outside of religion. And today we recognize and accept it, just like there is a Christian electrical engineer and there is a Muslim electrical engineer and a Jewish electrical engineer and Hindu electrical or Sikh electrical engineer. And for all of them, they follow the rule voltage equals amperes multiplied by resistance. V equals IR. That is the same for all of them. And I think what you are talking about is that kind of supra religious knowledge that is the same for everyone. I mean, gravity has the value of negative 32 feet per second square, independent of what your religion is. And everybody accepts it and works with it and lives with it. So I think this idea of spiritual regeneration it's in nowhere in conflict with any religion, just as knowledge of electrical engineering is not in conflict with any religion.
That's a very good point. Fundamentally, all the religions, if you go to the depth of it, there are two ways to understand and gain the knowledge of ocean. One is have the sailboat and go on the surface all around the ocean. Other is go deep into the bottom of the ocean. And who will gain more knowledge? The person who goes to the bottom. So similarly, all our religions, people are only taking the sailboat and going on the surface. Hardly anybody goes to the bottom. And whoever goes to the bottom of any religion, they find oneness. Because they were all based originally on the same concept. So there is only one religion, which is oneness.
Ratanjit, I have a question. So I've experienced that when at the end of life with people that I've been with, that just before they pass, it seems many times to me, now that we've discussed this, that they find that oneness, maybe that they didn't find in their life. There's a reality of, it's not just that's the end of their life. There's almost a unique piece that they all of a sudden understand. And it's, based on our discussion, it's hard for many to get out of the human mode and experience that in life. How do you consistently do that? How do you get and teach that, like what you're doing?
Yeah, we have to understand, as I said before, that we live our life not from the knowledge we have, but from the habits we have. So systematically, from the birth, a child, we are told we are separate, we are this. So we are put into the human body mode systematically. And that's what we remain. And then when we go to these religious shrines, they basically use the same human body mode to extract money from you. And they do not talk about the oneness. On and off, once a while, they do talk about oneness mode. And that's supposed to be, it makes you feel good, and then you go back to the human body mode. So nobody systematically switches you into the oneness mode. So now that we all know that this is something which we have to do, we have to make effort every morning. So I mentioned this exercise many times before, and to change the habit, to form a habit, we have to cultivate something we have to do consecutively at the same time on a regular basis. It becomes a habit. So every
39
morning,
times.
yeah. So every morning you get up, you pick up a time, and on that same time you do the same exercise. And then this consequence of exercise would stay for half an hour or 1 hour, for 2 hours, for 4 hours. So eventually it'll go stay with you throughout the day. So the exercise is then when you have the bath and get yourself dressed and stand in front of a full mirror and see the reflection of this human body. And then you realize what this amazing instrument this human body is. It makes its own blood, it has its own thing, it can see and can hear. And so then you realize that this human body is gifted to me. So that brings the gratefulness in your thinking. And then you close your eyes and look into the enlivening force present in this human body. Without that, this human body would be dead. So once you see the divine force, you bow to it. And that is the real you. That is the power in you. And when you get out of this exercise, you see in the eyes of your spouse or a child, your co-worker, the same force. You see the divinity in them. And suddenly the reverence which you experience for the divinity is experienced by the presence of others. So slowly, you get into this mindset which stays with you for a longer time, and then suddenly you begin to start thinking and doing and making all your decisions in that format.
Thank you.
Dr. Singh, you haven't said anything. You're still there.
Yes, good morning. I was a bit late, but really interesting conversation. My question is a bit maybe when we regret or when we apologize, what are the criteria which we use? Normally, we use the criteria of regret again in the body mode.
Yes.
And if those criteria, and then the apology and other thing also come under the body mode itself.
Yes. That's what we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what. But really, do we really feel the regret Or sometimes do we do something which is really bad in the, not in the body mode, but in the oneness mode? Do we do anything bad? Or whatever we do is fine?
No, it's a oneness mode. It's not possible to do anything bad.
It is not possible. So if in oneness mode we will never have done anything bad, and we will never regret for it.
Yes.
That's good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sudarshan and Brian and Mr. Singh, Dr. Singh. And I think if there's
Thank you. Thank you
no
very
more
much.
question, we will wish you all the best and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.